Okay, welcome back, everybody. On this episode of the John1911 Podcast, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. I've been traveling quite a bit this week, and considering what time it is, I believe Freeze is probably even in bed. So I'm going to take this opportunity to do a little, I guess what they call them, after action report, AAR, of a class that I took not that long ago. From a guy that many of you have probably heard of. His name is John McFee. He's also known on the internet as a sheriff of Baghdad, and he is also known as Shrek. He's a former member of the, I guess you call it Delta Force. I mean, I don't think he likes to use that phrase, the unit, or whatever it is. If you're interested in those topics, or maybe some of the stuff and his exploits in the military, those are well documented, and I encourage you to go out and find the appropriate books that discuss it. So he's a very interesting guy, and it was quite an eye-opening class. So I guess the first thing I will do is I will, because everyone's going to gear queer out on this anyway, what rifle and what was the class? It was a 100-yard carbine course. I think it was a 100-yard carbine course by virtue of the limitation of the size of the facility that this was at. It was an LE only course, and just I had some preconceived notions of what I thought it was going to be like. I was like, well, it's going to be red dot rifles and position shooting and A zones on targets and barricades and all that kind of stuff. So I was like, great, I can roll with this. So just so you can know what I showed up with, it was a 14.5-inch carbine. For those of you that care, BCM upper, LMT lower. The real important thing here is my optic on my rifle is an Aimpoint Micro H1. I've had this thing so long, it's one of the old ones, because now they're 2 or 3 generations ahead, but mine's the H1, and I just run regular old steel mags. I don't generally... I've kind of gotten away from plastic polymer PMags. I think I can just do reloads with them better. Accuse me of a little bit of gamesmanship, but, I take it wherever I can get it. So, I guess the first thing that happened with this class that I knew I was going to be in trouble was John McFee is running this 100-yard carbine course to a very high accuracy standard, which shouldn't have surprised me because I've trained with other people from the same military, they have the same military background as John McFee, and they all, it seems like, shoot to a very high accuracy standard. And you would think in my 2-cell amoeba brain, I would have seen this coming, but no. So basically, the gold standard of this class is a 3-inch dot at 100 yards. And with my aging eyes and a red dot, and needing glasses, like literally I went to go in and renew my driver's license, and it turns out I finally need glasses. I had to try to compete with everybody else, and it was bad. I lost. I did, by my standards, I did poorly on every drill and on every competitive shoot-off, because there is a shoot-off. They have shoot-offs and competitions, and everybody's keeping score. And I brought up the caboose on the train every single time, and wasn't even competitive. But in full disclosure, I did not lose because I couldn't see. I didn't lose because I didn't shoot as good as everybody else. So it wasn't like they beat me because of gear. It's because I went in there with the wrong mentality about what this class was going to be. I did not perceive this as being a precision rifle type class. And not that I'm saying a 100-yard 3-inch dot is a precision rifle class, but when you're shooting red dots and you're blasting away, or even you're used to shooting steel targets, there's many of you that'll listen to this that might be in for a rude awakening when some of these people decide, hey, guess what? We're not shooting steel, we're shooting paper, and we're going to be shooting a 3-inch dot and tagging, connecting in the quote A zone, and getting a hit isn't a hit when you're shooting on paper and you're measuring by millimeters. So the general overview of the class is there are a few other things in there, and I'm not going to give his class away. You can take his class. But basically he covered prone, kneeling and standing positions, Pretty standard. He has some ways of approaching some of it that was new to me. Actually, here's some foreshadowing for this review. Is he had a lot of stuff that I've never heard before, and it's not like I'm completely new to the firearms world or the training world, but McFee is doing stuff that, I literally my mouth was hanging open. I'm like, what the hell? I'm like I think I even at one point in the class, and everybody heard me, and I said out loud, I've never heard of half this stuff before. And it's true. Now, I'll address that comment later for those of you who are headline readers and think you know what I'm talking about, because you don't. And we'll kick your ass on here a little bit. So the 100-yard zero, or the 3-inch group. Oh, also, I guess I will say this. McFee is military, so, a lot of the law enforcement guys, also myself, not law enforcement, a lot of us tend to shoot 50-yard zeros, some even shoot 25-yard zeros. But McFee runs a 100-yard zero. I'm like, fine, 100-yard zero it is. It's his class, and I'm just like, that's what he wants to teach. I want to be able to, to take in whatever it is he's willing to give, and I don't want to be held back or confused because I'm shooting a different zero than how he's running his curriculum. So I think a couple of the people in the class made changes as well back to a 100-yard zero, and I would keep an open mind on that. I don't know personally if I will maintain a 100-yard zero on this rifle, but for the class, do it. Then you go back, you can shoot 25-yard zero. Neither here nor there, but I thought that's something that should be mentioned. So I guess the biggest thing that McFee is known for is for slow-mo video filming of his students. And that was certainly something that he did here. I think if I recall, the software is called Coach's Eye. And so he, they use it for sports training, which, if you think about it, this is very much sports training, but, he can run stuff forward, he can run it back, he can zoom in, he can, draw lines showing parallel movements and vibrations and ticks that may not be visible to the trainer, with the naked eye. And so he certainly did that. And even though I have seen a fair amount of his video critiquing, online, not that I really follow his stuff, but I'm not that, unfamiliar with what he does. There was a lot to be gleaned from his critiques of video training. And I that alone was worth the class. That isn't the only thing that I learned, but that alone was definitely worth signing up for the class, or something to think about. Also, I guess I'll say this too, and look, I've been around the world. I really have, and so nothing against a lot of training facilities that I've been to, because they need to make money. They got to stay open, and but the teacher to student ratio is normally not in the student's favor. There's always range staff officers or assistant teachers or whatever, because I've worked in that position myself. And but I think this class was limited to 8 people, and there may have been 6 in it, maybe 7. I think they had one person drop out or got activated or something. So, it's basically John McFee and 6 people, maybe 7. So you get a lot of personal time with him, whether you want it or not. But it's very positive. And, I'll go ahead and say this into his benefit. Again, having a lot of experience with different training courses, even from people that come from a similar background as to Mr. McFee, is he doesn't make it the John McFee show. It's not about, he's very, very personable. He's very approachable and pretty easygoing. He seems like a regular guy, and that's super, super pleasant. It's not It's not a lot of high pressure. It's not a lot of dick checking. It's not a lot of fuck you and screaming and, I'm a badass and you suck. There's none of that at all. And I fully expected that. I didn't know. So if that's something that, doesn't appeal to you and you want more of like a chilled, laid back kind of dude, McFee's pretty chill. It's pretty interesting. And so, but with that comes, a lot of personal attention, but it's not attention where it's like, hey, let's hold you up in front of everybody and show everybody how you suck. And, everyone else is doing great. Because I can tell you, as the person that did the worst in the class, the absolute worst in the class, I never felt like I was the horse's ass of the class. So I wasn't, private pile of the class. And so if you're, wanting to learn and your cup is empty and you're willing to, put yourself out there, McFee he's not gonna kick you in the balls at all. I'm pretty certain he wouldn't even allow his students to engage in that activity amongst themselves. I really think he would probably chop those people down pretty quick. So again, it didn't happen, but this is just kind of the feel that I get. And so now let me go ahead. And so obviously you learn a lot from the coach's eye, the video analysis, and they send you all that stuff and you get copies of it to take home. And, but the other thing, I guess, that I'm going to say as far as, what did I get from the class that was so different and so unexpected? So I'm going to reference a video that most of you have probably seen or heard of. And I don't know what the video is called, but there are different iterations where you see McFee and he'll have a student or somebody, I assume it's a student, pushing out with a handgun and line their sights up on a target. And he takes like a ratchet or some kind of tool, some kind of metal, like a ratchet with a, long metal handle in it, basically tells the student to line up the sights. And then he puts his tool in a trigger face and he takes his hand and he slaps that tool. And he starts slapping it harder and harder and harder and proving the point. His argument is that trigger jerk isn't real. He's swanging on these triggers as long as you have the sights on target. The bullet goes where it's supposed to go. And that's basic mechanics. It's obvious. Now, here's where I'm going to kick some of your asses because it kind of kicked mine a little bit too. So, we've all seen that video, and there's a couple other things, like you'll see some comments McFee will make about training, and everybody's just regurgitating the same things over and over and over again from World War II, and it's almost like a game of telephone, and, people don't even know why what they're teaching works or doesn't work. They're just parroting dogma. And so, and everybody on the internet that's seen a couple of these videos or heard these kinds of statements from McFee will shake their head yes and go, you're right, you're cool, and since I'm getting your message, I'm cool too, and I'm smarter than everybody else. Well, let me tell you something. I showed up in this class. I'd seen all that shit, and felt like I was drinking from a fire hose. This dude has so much stuff that he's doing that I haven't seen before. I was swimming in the deep end of the pool, obviously, because I was getting my ass kicked proverbially, trying to, keep up with everybody. But, don't go in there. Don't be like me. Don't make the mistakes I made. Don't go in there without a low power variable optic, first of all, and, glasses if you need them. The second thing is don't go in there thinking that, I know what's going to happen here. I've got this under control, just try not to, like I told myself, what, I may not come in first, but what? I just don't want to come in last. You know what? I'll beat a few of these guys and, maybe I might even beat one or two of these SWAT officers. Well, I didn't beat any of the SWAT officers and I didn't beat any of the street cops. I came in dead ass last. So be ready. Start shooting on paper your carbines at 100 yards for tight, accurate groups. And, you'll be ahead of the curve if you take one of his classes. Now, I guess a couple points here to add at the end of this. someone's going to ask, well, how many rounds did you shoot? And according to my records, I fired, it could vary a little bit per person, 171 rounds. As I recall, the syllabus for the class basically said 500 rounds, bring 500 rounds. And again, I've worked at gun schools and training facilities, and they always publish high numbers because the last thing they want to have happen is have you run out of ammo. And again, most schools can absorb 1 or 2 students that run out of ammo, but if they have 10, 15, 20, 30 students and 15 students run out of ammo, it's going to be hard for the school to absorb those kinds of logistical, shortcomings, to be able to keep people running. So, McFee does publish a higher round count than he's probably willing to do or willing to admit, at least, on his syllabus. And so some of you may wonder, like, well, God, 171 rounds, for 2 days, you're used to maybe taking a class in 2 days. You might shoot a low round count for 2 days, might be 600 rounds, and a regular high round count might be 1,200 rounds. I will tell you what, these 171 rounds were the most beneficial and high quality rounds I have ever fired in training that I can recall. There may be some other ones out there that maybe just haven't left as much of an impression. Maybe it's because I was drinking from the fire hose here, but it was high quality. It was very, very, very interesting and, very worth it. I learned a lot from those 171 rounds. And so also, I'm not speaking for McFee. I don't know him. Most of the people that were in the class had taken courses from him before. I think I was probably one of the few new people. I'm under the impression that McFee may not be doing this forever. He hasn't been around a long time, at least relatively speaking to a lot of other instructors, but just talking to him, I'm not going to talk about his business, but you can ask him. But I don't think if you're sitting on your butt and you think you've got forever to take a McFee class and it's something you really want to consider doing, you know what? I don't think he's going to be doing it forever. And just, here's a couple things to consider. The dude's retired military, full 20 plus years, so he's got his full pension. He's got his Sheriff of Baghdad business. He's got his online training. He's got some of his, products and slings and knives and holsters and other stuff that he sells. And this guy is driving. He drives everywhere. He's doing. It's not like he's doing one class a week. You look at his schedule and it's, he's in Kentucky, he's in Ohio, he's in Kansas, he's in Louisiana, he's outside of Chicago, he's in New York, he's in Virginia. He is just constantly going everywhere. And just, look at the guy. He spent most of his career, deployed. He's married, he's got kids. I don't just even from that personal level, at what point do you just like, fuck, I don't, I just doesn't want to travel as much anymore. I certainly understand that. I used to travel all the time and you just get tired of it. And I do not, if you think McFee is doing these classes and he's going to be doing them forever because he needs the money, you're a damn fool. So he doesn't know about this review. He doesn't know about John1911. He doesn't know about, us at all. And he's not paying me to say this. But if you're thinking about taking a class with the dude, you better do it sooner rather than later. Because I suspect within the foreseeable future, he may not be as accessible as he is currently. I guess in, final thoughts, would I do this again? Yes. Did I learn a lot? Hell yes. Truth be told, probably by the end of the first day, I could have left and spent the next 6 months working on just what he had taught me, things I needed to work on. Like, I didn't need 2 days. I learned more on the second day, but there was enough in just one day that, I need to spend a lot of time, working on some individual skills and some individual, critiques that, he put on me. So I expected to go to this class and learn a few things and, maybe work at a higher level. And what ended up happening was I got my dick chopped off and I was barely able to keep up. And I did not think that was going to happen, and that was worth the money. So if you're considering looking at John McFee, the sheriff of Baghdad, Shrek, or whatever he goes by now, think about doing it. So anyway, that wraps up this episode of the John1911 Podcast. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, or want to see any pictures or links to anything, maybe some of the things I described, you can go to the website, john1911.com. That's JOHN1911.com. Remember, it's all about shooting guns and having fun. Everybody, have a good day.